stark, arid, and almost desolate. This is the Cariri region in northeastern Brazil. It's an unlikely place to visit, far from the lush, rain-soaked land of the Amazon. This area is not only dry in its landscape, it is devoid of the Adventist message. There is very little presence here, and this is what drew Jorge and Edjane Barbosa to the region.
So we were in a big church, comfortable, and that's very good, but knowing that there are places that don't have the presence of the Adventist church, which we believe is the one that has the true message, we became uncomfortable, disturbed. We even couldn't sleep, knowing that we had a good relationship with God, but people were perishing in sin. We prayed to God and put ourselves in His hands and asked Him for direction to make a decision about going to these places. And we felt that God was really calling us. We were convicted to do so.
Their passion to spread the gospel took them from their comfortable life working at an Adventist university and led them to become missionaries in the small town of Barra de São Miguel. With less than 2,000 residents and no Adventists, it was a stark contrast to the vibrant campus and faith community they had left behind.
Despite being our region, we were originally from this area, but had never lived in a Cariri, which is a land that has no water, where people usually suffer a lot because of the lack of this precious asset. And it was not easy to buy fruits and vegetables. We had to travel 90 kilometers to buy these products.
The lack of access to basic necessities, such as food and water, was tough. But more than the physical challenges, the Barbosas faced an emotional hardship. They were incredibly lonely.
We started with worship services, my wife and I, alone in that place. We sang our hymns, we read Sister White's books, the Bible, studying, praying. But when it came to singing, it was the hardest time, because when we sang, we remembered the previous church songs, singing with a lot of people, and now it was just my wife and I. So sometimes it was very hard, and we melted into tears, because it was not easy. But we knew that everything had a purpose, and things would happen in time.
The difficult living conditions and isolation would have caused many to give up. But the Barbosas never once questioned God's calling.
Never. We never had that or nurtured a feeling that everything was wrong or that we had made the wrong choice. We were sure that just as God had called Abraham in the Bible, He would give us strength, that this was really His call. Then we trusted in Him, meditating in the Bible and praying so many times until dawn. God spoke through His Word, comforting us, saying that this was the right decision we had made, being in the mission field.
Slowly, over time, they began making friends and reaching out to people in the community. Soon, a small group was meeting in their home, but as promising as their progress was, it was difficult to talk to people about God, only to invite them to worship in their living room. There was no church. They needed a proper place to worship. Their prayers were answered when in January 2012, a Maranatha crew arrived to erect a one-day church in Barra de São Miguel. The construction drew much attention from the town.
When we said that our church would be built in just one day, and they said, "How will it be?" And when the team got here with all the material and began the work around 9 a.m., and at 3 p.m. the church was up and covered, the whole city spread out the news, and everyone went there to see. And it really was very important because it was the beginning. So from that moment on, people would get used to the idea of a different church.
For the Barbosas, seeing the church frame go up was tangible affirmation that their hard work was worthwhile.
You arrive in a place and it has nothing. Suddenly you see a church rising. There's nothing more rewarding and wonderful for us than entering into this challenge to take the gospel to this city and building a place for the honor and glory of God.
After the Maranatha crew left, Jorge and Edjane began the task of finishing their church. They had little resources to hire professionals, so they did much of the work themselves.
We had no building experience, unless you count working on our own house in Minas Gerais. I think that it was God teaching us, so that when we arrived in the mission field, we would know how to do something. And actually we did. All we did was actually contributing so that the church could become even more beautiful.
It was very hard. The ground was very dry and hard. We had no water, and we had to wet the ground to soften it in order to dig and make the foundation of the church. We could do that part and started to get our hands dirty, preparing cement and mixing it, bringing stone and laying bricks. And all this was rewarding because we got to see the church growing from bottom to top. And it made us very happy to participate in this construction.
After 9 months of hard work, the church was complete and ready to dedicate. The building soon became a landmark in town.
When the church was built, we had a point of reference. Indeed, it was the most beautiful building in the city of Barra de São Miguel. And at first people started saying, "Oh, the new little church," or "the blue little church." And when we invited them, we already had a place to meet them. And this was very important to us. Without having a church to bring people together, even if it was in a rented place, it would not be the same. That's not a point of reference, and it also does not represent well the name of God.
This new building caught the attention of a young woman named Stephanie Ferraz.
Well, once I was passing by here in front of the church, I saw that there was a small group of people, but I did not know the church. I looked and decided to come in. I decided to visit. I came in, I watched and liked it.
Edjane and Jorge began studying the Bible with Stephanie. Before long, she was at church each Sabbath, working with the children and soaking in the worship. The beautiful church was what initially drew her in, but it was church members' love and care that truly engaged her.
When I came to church for the very first time, it was wonderful to me. It was a peace and a joy that I can say I ever felt. I found people here who embraced me, who accepted me the way I was, and I am now transformed. Thank God. I think that if this church wasn't here near me, I'd be the same person as before.
Soon, Stephanie was sharing the source of her newfound peace and joy with others.
Yes, I started giving Bible studies because I wanted to share what I had learned. I think this is our biggest desire, to go to heaven and also take others with us. And through the study of the Word, we know we're doing this.
Stephanie's is just one of many lives the Barbosas transformed in Barra de São Miguel. But with the church complete, they felt compelled to take the gospel to another town. Jorge and Edjane moved 10 miles down the road to Riacho de Santo Antonio. They've already started another group that meets each Sabbath in this rented space. Today, the Barbosas spend many of Sabbaths worshiping separately as Jorge continues to lead the Barra de São Miguel congregation and Edjane nurtures the new group in Riacho de Santo Antonio. Their time as missionaries hasn't been easy, but it has been a time of incredible spiritual growth for both of them.
We realized how we were empty, even being involved with church, even being committed with God's work in a school or in a big church. And the biggest spiritual growth is ours. We are the ones that have grown and learn more and more every day. And it brings a lot of happiness because we want to teach people a different way of living, how to write a different story. But we are already writing this story.
Their commitment to introduce Jesus to as many people as possible is what fuels their work.
When we decided to get involved in this work, in this mission to evangelize places where there's no Adventist presence or message, we put ourselves in God's hands and decided that He would take care of us and guide us. We would stop the mission only when He interrupted it. So we're willing to stay in the mission field until the day when God says that's enough, or until life or health give out on us. But as long as possible, as long as there is strength and physical condition, we're willing to stay in the mission field until God tells us to stop. There are many cities which don't know the gospel. In this region where we are, there are 8 cities where there's no presence of the Adventist Church. And every day, we must ask God, Lord, God, give us the city. It's for you. So we believe that He will lead the work. We can't give up because if He brought us here, it's because He has a challenge for us here. It's not because we have difficulties or because it's not easy that we'll give up the work. No. We are trusting in God, and this work is not ours. It's His. We'll be here fighting and evangelizing until God says, enough.